It is Saturday morning. You wake up at 9 a.m. The sun is coming through the window. You have a mental list of things you want to do today. You have that personal project you've been meaning to start. You have a stack of books you want to read. You have a sink full of dishes that you actually, strangely, feel the energy to clean. You feel capable. You feel human. But then, you remember. You have a dentist appointment at 4 p.m. Or maybe it's not a dentist director. Maybe it's a Zoom call with a client. Maybe it's meeting a friend for coffee. Maybe it's just a package delivery that requires a signature. It doesn't matter what the event is. What matters is that it is a hard anchor in your day. It is a fixed point in time. Logically, you look at the clock. It is 10 a.m. You have 6 hours until 4 p.m. 6 hours is a massive amount of time. You could watch the entirety of The Godfather and still have time to cook a 3-course meal. You could drive to a different city. You could write a chapter of a novel. But your brain does not see 6 hours of potential. Your brain sees a waiting room. You sit down on the couch. You think about opening your laptop to do some work. But a voice in the back of your head whispers, "No, we can't start that. We have the thing at 4 o'clock. You think about taking a nap. But the voice says, "No, too risky. If we fall asleep, we might feel groggy, or we might miss the alarm. Better to stay awake." You think about playing a video game, but the voice says, "No, that is too immersive. If we get sucked in, we might lose track of time. We need to stay vigilant." So you don't do the work. You don't take the nap. You don't play the game. But you don't do nothing either. You enter a state of purgatory. You scroll aimlessly on your phone, refreshing apps you just closed. You pace around the kitchen, eating snacks you aren't hungry for. You sit in a chair, staring at the wall, vibrating at a low frequency of anxiety. You are not relaxing. You are buffering. You are holding your entire nervous system in a state of suspended animation, guarding the time slot like a soldier guarding a border. By the time 3:30 p.m. rolls around, you are exhausted. You haven't done a single physical task, yet you feel like you've run a marathon. You leave for the appointment, get it done, and come home. The appointment took 45 minutes, but it didn't cost you 45 minutes. It costs you the entire day. We often call this laziness. We call it poor time management. We shame ourselves for wasting a perfectly good Saturday. But this is not laziness. This is a specific neurological failure state known as waiting mode. And today, we are going to open up the motherboard of your mind and find out exactly why your system crashes every time you check your calendar. To understand waiting mode, we have to stop thinking of your brain as a mind or a spirit and start thinking of it as a computer. Specifically, we need to look at a component called working memory, or RAM, random access memory. RAM is your brain's scratchpad. It is the temporary workspace where your brain holds the information it is using right now. If you are cooking dinner, your RAM is holding a few specific pieces of data. The stove is on. The onions need chopping, and where did I put the salt? Neurotypical brains that function with a standard operating system, have a decent amount of RAM. They can hold the 4 p.m. appointment file in the background, minimized to the taskbar, while running a high-energy program like creative writing or house cleaning in the foreground. They can run multiple applications at once without the system lagging. But for many of us, especially those with ADHD, high anxiety, or executive dysfunction, our working memory is fragile. It is slippery. It is limited. When you have an appointment at 4 p.m., your brain tags that event as a high-priority threat. It becomes an open loop. In psychology, the Zeigarnik Effect states that people remember uncompleted or interrupted tasks better than completed ones. An open loop creates tension. Your brain craves closure. Until that appointment is over, the loop is spinning. For a neurodivergent brain, this open loop is dangerous. Your brain knows its own limitations. It knows that it has a history of forgetting things. It knows that if it puts down the appointment to focus on a different task, it might lose the appointment entirely. It doesn't trust its own filing system. It thinks that if it minimizes the window will disappear forever. So instead of storing the appointment in your long-term memory or trusting your digital calendar, your brain decides to hold it in your hands. Imagine holding a glass of water. It's light. It weighs almost nothing. You can hold it for a minute with no problem. But what if you had to hold it for 6 hours? What if you were not allowed to set it down, not even for a second? Until 4 p.m.? After 20 minutes, your arm will start to ache. After an hour, your muscles will cramp. After 3 hours, your arm will go numb. You wouldn't be able to use that hand for anything else. You couldn't open a door. You couldn't type an email. You couldn't wash a dish. You are paralyzed, simply because you are holding something small for too long. That is what your brain is doing with the time slot. It is allocating 80% of your available RAM just to remember that the event exists. It is constantly refreshing the page. Don't forget the dentist. Don't forget the dentist. Don't forget the dentist. You can't clean the house because you don't have enough processing power left to run the cleaning software. You are maxed out. Your CPU is running at 100% capacity just to maintain the wait. This is why waiting mode feels so physically exhausting. You aren't doing nothing. You are actively performing a high-energy task called not forgetting. You are manually bridging the gap between now and then, second by second, burning through your mental battery just to keep the appointment alive in your conscious mind. But there is a second culprit here, lurking beneath the RAM issue. It is a phenomenon known as time blindness. For most people, time is a continuous river. They can see the flow. They can intuitively feel how long an hour is. They can look at a clock that reads 10 a.m. and intuitively understand the distance between now and 4 p.m. They can build a bridge across that distance. But for the waiting mode brain, time is not a river. It is a binary state. There is now, and there is not now. If the appointment is at 4 p.m. and it is currently 10 a.m., the appointment is in the not now bucket. It feels abstract. It feels infinite. However, your brain has a deep primal fear of the time vortex. You know this feeling. It's the feeling of entering a flow state or hyper-focus. When you finally engage with a task you love, painting, coding, reading, gaming, time disappears. The river vanishes. You blink, and 4 hours have passed. Your brain is disenchanted of this state when an appointment is on the horizon. It knows that if you enter the time vortex, you are unsafe. It knows that if you let yourself sink into the deep work, you will blink, and it will be 4:15 p.m. You will have missed the dentist. You will have failed. You will face social rejection, fees, or shame. So your brain installs a safety mechanism: paralysis. It prevents you from entering deep flow to ensure you don't lose track of the horizon. It keeps you in the shallow end of the pool, where the water is cold and uncomfortable, because the deep end is dangerous. The anxiety you feel, the inability to start, is actually a protective measure. Your brain is trying to keep you safe from your own time blindness. It is keeping you in a state of hypervigilance. It creates a waiting room in your mind. In a real waiting room, like at a doctor's office, you don't start big projects. You don't pull out a canvas and start painting. You don't try to reorganize your tax returns. You sit. You read a magazine you don't care about. You stare at the clock. You wait for your name to be called. Your brain recreates this environment in your living room. It suppresses your creativity, your drive, and your desire to work, forcing you to sit in the mental waiting room until the danger of the appointment has passed. There is one final mechanical failure contributing to this paralysis: the cost of the transition. We can apply Newton's first law of motion to human psychology. A mind at rest stays at rest. A mind in motion stays in motion. Switching tasks is expensive. It is metabolically taxed. It costs dopamine to start cleaning the kitchen. It costs dopamine to stop cleaning the kitchen. It costs dopamine to get ready for the car. It costs dopamine to switch from home mode to social mode. If you start a task now, say at 11 a.m., you are committing yourself to many painful transitions. You have to pay the initiation tax to start the work. Then, in a few hours, you have to pay the interruption tax to tear yourself away from the work to get ready. Your brain is an energy-conserving machine. It is constantly running a cost-benefit analysis in the background. It looks at the timeline and calculations. Is it worth paying the high energy cost to focus on writing for 2 hours, only to pay another high energy cost to stop and switch gears? For the waiting mode brain, the answer is usually no. The most energy-efficient move, according to your subconscious, is to simply hover. You enter a state of low-power mode. You don't land the plane. You don't fly to a new destination. You just circle the airport. You hover. You vibrate in the air. You maintain a holding pattern. This is why you feel guilty. You look at yourself and think, I am just sitting here. I could be doing something. But you can't. Because doing something requires a landing and a takeoff, and your fuel light is already on. We see this exact same mechanism happen on a macro scale every single week. We call it the Sunday Scaries. Sunday is technically a day off. You don't have work. You are free. But Sunday is not a day. Sunday is a pre-Monday. By 2 p.m. on Sunday, you enter waiting mode for Monday morning. You can't start a big personal project because the work week is looming like a storm cloud on the horizon. You can't fully relax because your brain is already bracing for the impact of the alarm clock. This is anticipatory anxiety. You are pre-living the stress of tomorrow. You are paying interest on a debt you haven't even accrued yet. Your brain thinks that if it stays tense, if it stays vigilant, Monday won't hurt as much. It thinks that if it braces for impact, the crash will be softer.
But it doesn't work. Bracing for impact doesn't make the crash softer. It just makes the flight miserable. You lose your Saturdays to the waiting mode of appointments, and you lose your Sundays to the waiting mode of the work week. Your life becomes a series of waiting rooms. You are always preparing to live, but never actually arrive.
So the question remains, how do we break out of the lounge? How do we convince our brains that it is safe to put down the glass of water? We cannot rely on willpower. Willpower is a myth. You cannot force a paralyzed muscle to move by yelling at it. We have to outsmart the operating system. Solution 1. The artificial boundary. The problem with waiting mode is that the waiting gap is undefined. It's just time before the thing. It is amorphous. It leaks into everything. You need to give that time a name and a shape. You need to build a container for it. If your appointment is at 4 p.m., do not say, "I have free time until 4. That's a trap. Instead, say, "From 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., I am on project time. At 1 p.m., the shop is closed." You must create a hard stop before the actual stop. You need a buffer zone. By creating a fake deadline at 1 p.m., you give your brain a smaller, safer window to work in. You are telling your brain, "We don't have to worry about the dentist yet. We only have to worry about 1 p.m. Solution 2. The alarm protocol. Your brain is paralyzed because it doesn't trust you to remember the time. It is holding the appointment in RAM because it thinks you are unreliable. So, you must outsource the trust. Set an alarm. But not just a quiet notification on your phone that you might ignore. Set a loud, physical alarm. Put it across the room. Then, you have to make a deal with your amygdala, the fear center of your brain. You have to consciously say, "I am allowed to forget about the dentist until this alarm rings. The alarm is responsible for the time. I am responsible for the task." You are offloading the RAM usage to the clock. You are putting the glass of water down on the table. You are telling your brain, "The external world will wake us up. You can go into sleep mode now." Solution 3. The Puddle Theory. Don't try to swim in the deep end before an appointment. Don't try to write your magnum opus or deep clean the garage. The transition cost is too high. Instead, just step in a puddle. Do a task that takes 10 minutes. Wash 5 dishes, write 2 sentences, fold 1 shirt, break the inertia. Often, waiting mode is just the fear of getting stuck. If you make the task small enough that it feels interruptible, your brain will lower the threat level. It will let you start because it knows you can stop immediately. It feels safe. And finally, Solution 4. The do-nothing protocol. If you have tried all of this, and you truly, physically cannot focus, then stop trying. But, and this is the key, do not buffer with your phone. If you are in waiting mode, commit to it. Sit in the chair. Close your eyes. Rest. The toxicity of waiting mode comes from the guilt, the feeling that you should be doing something else. The tension comes from the resistance. If you accept the wait, if you say, "I am choosing to rest until 4 p.m., the paralysis turns into restoration. You stop fighting the present and just float. You turn the waiting room into a meditation hall. We spend so much of our lives waiting for the next thing, waiting for the weekend, waiting for the appointment, waiting for the notification. We treat the present moment as an obstacle to get through. But the waiting room is still a room. It is still a place where you exist, and you are allowed to live there too. You are allowed to put down the glass. The time will pass anyway. You might as well use your hands for something else while it does.